I guarantee you're playing every Souls game wrong, whether you're a veteran or a noob. There are huge don'ts throughout the Souls series that I know you're guilty of, whether it's making terrible decisions you can't undo or missing crucial details. We're going to uncover all the things you do wrong in every Souls game. I'm 100% sure you've done at least one of these. Are you a heathen? An irredeemable monster? You'll find out depending on whether you make this mistake in every Souls game. This isn't just a mistake though. It's a sin that marks you as a tainted soul and terrible person. Not exploring in any and every Souls game is one of the worst things you can do. Well, maybe not the worst, but pretty close. FromSoft are masters of creating a compelling and gripping world. I mean, Dark Souls 1 was literally a feat in gaming. We've never seen an in-game world so open, rich, and interconnected before. That's just Dark Souls 1. I haven't even dug into how good Elden Ring and Bloodborne's world is. Playing a Souls game and not exploring is like ordering a BLT sandwich with no bacon. Like, you're missing most of the experience. Even if you don't care about immersion and seeing an amazing world, you're still missing out on tons of items by not exploring. I mean, in Dark Souls 3 alone, if you look on the right ledge in the starter area, you find enough fire bombs to almost single-handedly kill the first boss. If you don't explore, you'll also miss out on NPC quests too. You'll never be able to follow my sweet prince, Daddy Siegfried, in his plus-sized adventures. If you don't explore, you just straight up miss out on most of the game. If you find yourself rushing through the game, please take a load off and enjoy the scenery. You'll probably find some amazing loot and stories in the process. The next mistake you carelessly make in every Soulsborne game is playing each game the exact same. Every single Souls title is a wildly different experience that requires different things from you. Dark Souls 1 is a slightly slower game that values defense a lot more than the others. On the other hand, Bloodborne is a game that requires you to play the exact opposite way, like an absolute madman. Then there's Dark Souls 2, which is at its best when you uninstall it and do literally anything else. Even though these games are in the same genre, if you can even call it a genre anymore with some of the entries, each game is still so wildly different that if you apply Dark Souls 3 tactics to Sekiro, you're dead. If you try to play with Bloodborne's aggression in Elden Ring, you get insta-killed, and Vare is hitting the gritty on your corpse before it gets cold. This isn't only talking about playstyle. It can be the way you handle dialogue, the way you use each weapon, the way you explore. For example, there aren't any mimic chests in Elden Ring, but if you walk around trusting every chest in Dark Souls 3, you're getting gobbled up real quick. This rule definitely applies more to some games than the others. Like, of course, if you're gonna play Sekiro like a Dark Souls game, you physically can't, but I think you get my point. The next mistake is one that I know for a fact you make in every single playthrough of every Soulsborne game. You don't use any consumables. You hoard them the entire game. Yeah, I see you. You can't get away with this. It has pretty much become an unwritten rule at this point that you don't use any consumables. But that's only to a certain extent. When you ignore them too much, it gets downright irresponsible. I can't keep track of how many people I've seen endlessly struggle on a Bloodborne boss when there's loads of fire papers in your inventory. You see them die with one hit left on the boss, and it's like, if you used your fire papers, you would have beat them that time. This is an issue I'm most guilty of in Elden Ring. I don't know about you guys, but I don't use rune arcs at all. Why? I have no idea. I've struggled on plenty of bosses before. That extra few buffs were probably the difference between me losing and winning in a couple of instances, but I still don't use them. It makes even less sense because I spam embers out the wazoo in Dark Souls 3. I don't even want to touch on the absolute goons who completely ignore the humanity mechanic in Dark Souls 1. Not using consumables can be a cool thing for a while, but your inventory shouldn't be filled with crazy useful consumables by the time you reach the credits. It isn't cool, it isn't cute, and it definitely doesn't make you better at the game. The real biggest mistake everyone is making right now is not being subscribed to Through the Fog. Subscribing to Through the Fog gets quality Soulsborne content wired directly into your veins, so you're missing out if you don't sub. Be sure to also leave a like for more videos like this. This next one is a Dark Souls 1 specific rule, because we need to talk about the fact that none of you rest at the Firelink Shrine bonfire. In Dark Souls 1, at base you get 5 Estus flasks, but when you rest at the Firelink Shrine, you get a fat 10 flasks. The trip to Firelink Shrine can be made easier and not necessary at all with the help of some items later in the game, but that's besides the point. The vast majority of the game, you're gonna have to hike to Firelink Shrine to get your extra flasks. And none of you do that. You walk around with half the healing that you could, just because you're too damn lazy to take a walk. This is made even worse when you consider the fact that most of the game is linked and wrapped around the Firelink Shrine, so you're never far away from it. But yet, we still walk around with half the flasks that we could for absolutely no reason. I legitimately don't ever want to see anyone complain about having a hard time in Dark Souls 1 if I look at your flask count and it's not 10. You broke bitch. Go and get your flasks up. And then you can come and complain to me about how you can't get past the Taurus demon. That's just a small nitpick compared to this next mistake everyone is making. The Souls community has a huge issue with killing NPCs. I know some of them are annoying as hell and deserve a blade through the throat, but getting too willy-nilly with murder will result in some serious consequences. I'm sure we all remember the first time we emerged from the crypt thing in Elden Ring, and the first thing we were met with was some guy telling us we have no maidens. Needless to say, the first thing that most players did was murder him. That insult deeply hurts a lot of us Souls players, because it was too true. Most of us eventually figured out the hard way that it wasn't the best idea to kill him. Knocking him off made an entire PvP-based questline unavailable. The best farming spot in the entire game is also locked behind that quest. The quest isn't the only way to get to the farming spot, but now your other way is to enter a random portal in the middle of nowhere in a super late game area. Even if you didn't care about farming, one of the best optional bosses is in the area you just walled yourself off from. If you look at the achievement rate for beating that boss, you can get an idea of the sheer amount of players that killed Vera on sight and locked themselves out of the main path to this fight. All that is what killing a single NPC in just one of the games does to negatively impact your playthrough. If you pull stuff like that this often in other games, I can't even imagine the deep trouble you're gonna find yourself in. If you get mad or are about to lose your temper on an NPC, just go and take it out on an enemy. Whenever I see someone start a new Soulsborne game, it seems like they look at every stat the exact same game from game. They never learn the difference between each stat in every game. Like I've said before, in every game, the same stat will give you completely different returns and effects. Even if it has the exact same name, it can and will be different in every game. If you aren't going to consider all that when choosing what to level, you're going to be walking around with a very different build than what you think you have. Poise, for example, is a stat that has wildly different functions throughout the series. Leaning strongly into Poise in Dark Souls 1 can carry you through the game, and you can hardly have to roll. While in Dark Souls 3, the Poise stat is weird and kinda useless, but also not useless, and it's to the point where we just ignore Poise and treat Dark Souls 3 like a fashion show. Then there's scaling. Scaling effectiveness completely changes depending on what game you're playing. In Dark Souls 1, the strength soft cap is at 40. In Elden Ring, the soft cap is at 55. FromSoft has experimented so much with stats that you really can't look at them the same way from game to game. I know that seems daunting, but I'm not saying you have to open up a wiki every time you play a FromSoft game. Go into it with a beginner's mind. Don't automatically try to play the game based off what you know, and let it blossom into its own experience. And I know you'll do just fine. Following up, we have yet another mistake that can make you miss massive amounts of in-game content. In Elden Ring in specific, one of these worst mistakes you can make is not talking to every NPC multiple times. For those who don't know, in Elden Ring, you haven't exhausted all the dialogue options for an NPC until you've talked to them multiple times. So even if you talk to an NPC 2 times, you could miss important lore, direction, and entire quest lines. On my first playthrough, I had some issue with Whiteface Vare's quest line because I just wasn't talking to the guy enough. I was trying to talk to this jerk as little as humanly possible, and because of that, he wasn't moving to the places I needed him to progress the quest line. Like, dude, get to the church. Why are you still here? I missed loads of other quest lines too, because I had no idea I was supposed to talk to any of these NPCs more than once. In my mind, I was here for the gameplay. I didn't care what any of these guys had to say, but that's a huge mistake, because I missed out on countless quest lines. The first time you talk to an NPC, they casually tell you about how the weather is looking nice. The second time, they'll tell you what they ate for lunch. The third time, they'll casually drop how the whole world is entering an apocalyptic state that will destroy everything if you don't get involved and stop a god-level threat. So even though it's weird and annoying, it's something you have to do if you want to do most of the content in Elden Ring. The next one is something that every Souls player will feel in their souls. No matter how much of a veteran or how good at the game you are, we've all made this mistake so many times. Not sending our shortcut elevators back is one of the biggest mistakes everyone is bound to make. It may only be a few seconds, but when you're running back and forth to a boss, waiting for the shortcut elevator to come back feels like an eternity. Waiting for the elevator countless times on the Vort shortcut on my first playthrough of Dark Souls 3 is a core memory for me. I don't even remember beating Vort for the first time, but I remember that damn elevator. It's even worse when you're running past a bunch of enemies and you have a whole army in pursuit of you, only to realize the elevator isn't where it needs to be. Your only option at that point is to violently roll around, trying to grip onto any chance of survival, or start the elevator and turn around and wait for your demise. It's cool that they added Stakes America to help with the run back for bosses, but we really need some sort of mechanism to send elevators back to your site of grace. Not sending the elevator back shouldn't feel like this much of an issue. On the other hand, when you remember to send the elevator back, it feels like the ultimate form of self-love. I could put money in my 401k, but my future self wouldn't be nearly as appreciative as when I send my elevators back. Ladies and gentlemen, the next time you don't have to wait for your elevator, I want you to enjoy the moment and seriously think and feel how nice it is to not have to wait for your transportation to arrive. Make sure you're always kind to your future self and send that elevator back. They'll appreciate it. Hey, real quick. We wanted to give you guys a way to support the channel that wasn't just another t-shirt. You ever notice there aren't any good fidget toys for guys? Everything out there is just a cheap kid's toy. Brother, what the hell even is this? Or all sparkles and glitter. Yeah, we noticed too. So we made something specifically for us and for you. I've been playing Bloodborne recently, and I made a huge mistake. I was going through the Chalice dungeons with loads of blood echoes, and I was also feeling a little cocky, because I am John through the fog after all. I walked into the boss room of the dungeon and got absolutely murderized. Like, I got destroyed. Oh, look at that. Now all my blood echoes are stuck in a boss fight. And now I need to commit to taking this boss down to get them back. We've all been in this position, getting a little cocky, and thinking you can walk around with multiple level ups worth of souls and not lose them. That's a massive mistake though. If you have a checkpoint near you, just get back and level up. Actually, even if it isn't near, go and take the walk, bud. It isn't worth losing all your souls from having to pay the stupid tax. It's gambling for no reason, and you aren't lucky enough to take that gamble. I know, because if you were, you wouldn't be sitting around here watching some random YouTuber telling you what you're doing wrong in a video game. Out of every mistake in this video, this is easily the worst. It's such a simple flaw to avoid. I mean, spend your souls. It's not that hard. Somehow, we still all fall into the trap of getting too confident and doing this wrong in every single Souls game. That's it for today. How many of these did you guys actually make? I know it's gonna vary from person to person, so I'm super interested in seeing what ones I really hit the nail with. If you liked the video, leave a like and subscribe, and click on the video on screen to see all the unwritten rules of Elden Ring. And until next time, I'll see you through the fog.